But how do you differentiate between the extremism and how, feminists like me think? I don't hate men.
It's a great question, and I'm glad you asked it. It's a great, great question. So what you have to realize about the left when you talk about extremism is they hack words that once had real meaning, and they take them for their own nefarious goals, right? So they'll say racism, and you'll go, oh my God,
I don't really even know the full definition of the word feminist. Like, I don't really get into those type of topics. Like, I really don't know what it means. And don't blame me. Like, do y'all know what it means nowadays? What is your definition of it? But the difference between conservatism and feminism is that conservatism typically falls, like, things that fall under conservatism usually are things that humans kind of have to make a decision. Or, let's say, liberalism.
And now we're going to give to wherever James O'Keefe goes, but Project Veritas. Hey.
Hi.
How are you?
I'm good. So I noticed you had a lot of thoughts on feminism. I'm a feminist, but
Totally
I was
fine.
just wondering, how do you differentiate between the extremism that exists in feminism as it does across, multiple different ideologies, but how do you differentiate between the extremism and how, feminists like me think? I don't hate men.
It's a great question, and I'm glad you asked it. It's a great, great question. So what you have to realize about the left when you talk about extremism is they hack words that once had real meaning, and they take them for their own nefarious goals, right? So they'll say racism, and you'll go, oh my God.
Honestly, in 2023, I don't really even know the full definition of the word feminism. Like, I don't really get into those type of topics. Like, I really don't know what it means. And don't blame me. Like, do y'all know what it means nowadays? What is your definition of it?
Not racism, that's completely ridiculous. You see something like feminism, and once upon a time, women were fighting for the right to vote. Well, now we have that. We have equal footing, and now they're using those terms. They're hiding behind the shield of feminism, and they're doing actually horrible things in society. And I blame feminists for almost every ill that we have right now because they've encouraged people not to act as a woman, and they bash men all the time, and I think that they have contributed the most to the breakdown of family in terms of an ideology. Now, for you...
Answer my question.
No, I'm getting there.
Okay.
Now, for you, you're like, okay, but I actually am somebody that just believes in equality, that there should be equality between the sexes, right?
I think it's more culturally and socially, not necessarily in the realm of legality.
Sure, so I'm going to ask you, what is it socially, so you could call yourself something, right? That means that there's some fight that you have. What is it socially that you and I have as women that we don't have that men do? Why is there a need for you to be a feminist?
I think as women, we are undervalued when it comes to our intelligence. I think people, especially for me, as a woman who, I'm sorry, what you said?
Go ahead, let her talk.
For me, as a woman, I feel like a lot of people look at me and think I'm superficial. They think I'm vapid. They don't necessarily see that I could be.
Did any of you think that when she came up here? I didn't think that. But maybe that's what she thinks I think, because if you're talking about feminism and men, like, you would assume that I think that, but I didn't think that. But now that you're speaking, it's like, I'm not gonna say you're trying to gaslight me, but it's like, what made you say that you think I think that? And I know that was like a tongue twister, but hey y'all, make sure y'all subscribe to the channel. Don't forget to subscribe.
Automatically.
Guys, don't be rude. Go ahead.
I tend to get belittled a lot, and that comes from men, not necessarily women, right?
So you're saying in your personal capacity, men are belittling you, right? But when you talk about affecting actually a social change, this might be your personal experience, but does that mean that all women are going through this, or that all women are experiencing this belittlement by men?
And see, I understand that, but I think also when I listen to you speak, and you speak on why you don't like feminism, I hear a lot of anecdotal work, and I hear a lot of personal experience.
What?
Like your experience in that one class that you had.
Wasn't what you just said a personal experience? Okay.
Whereas I've had 5-6 classes in my gender studies courses, and I've never experienced anything
that's totally
like that.
Fine. That's totally fine.
You know what I mean?
They're
So
just
I just
laughing
don't feel like it's fair to take personal
it's totally
experience
fine. Yeah, I get what you're saying. I'm actually talking about the real world consequences of the dangerous ideology telling women that they have to take their clothes off, that they should be on TikTok. I'm talking about real world consequences.
Yeah,
I'm
but I
talking
feel like
about literally the fact that women are no longer, like, they're by and large all climbing the corporate ladder, and that children are being ceded over to the state. So I was giving you an anecdotal example of what happened in my feminist class, but the repercussions of that are seen everywhere. What I am saying is that what I'm offering to you is not to feel like you have to give yourself an ism, right? right? Don't feel like you have to put yourself in a box. Don't feel like you have to put yourself into some weird social constructs. I think that what you'll find with time is that it constrains you unnecessarily. I don't have a problem with the fact if you want to identify as a feminist and you think that there is some fight that needs to be ended. I don't personally think that that's...
Is conservatism not a box any more than feminism is?
Well, saying that I have conservative principles, feminism is not being a conservative or being a liberal, right? You're
What?
talking about an ideology, right? A system you think
I would assume conservatism is also an ideology as well, is it not?
Sure. Conservatism is an ideology. These are the things that we believe. Republicanism, democratism, you could say that everything is an ideology. What I'm saying to you is that I would not necessarily paint...
But the difference between conservatism and feminism is that conservatism typically falls, like, things that fall under conservatism usually are things that humans kind of have to make a decision on. Or, let's say, liberalism. These aren't just things that you wake up and be like, you know what, I'm a feminist today. Or, you know what, I believe this today. But when it comes to picking a political ideology, when you have certain beliefs, you're just naturally going to fall into a specific category, regardless of if you want to or not. Because it's not like life-threatening things or things that, you feel like you're better than anyone. It's just like things on how you think your money should be spent. If you think everyone can work their way up the corporate ladder and no one should be given any handouts, if you think that, that's a conservative belief. And if you think the opposite, it will automatically be a liberal belief or whatever. That's what I'm saying. But when it comes to feminism, that's not necessarily true. You don't have to have feminist beliefs the same way you have to kind of pick a side. You could still be centered, but usually you're leaning more so on one side than the other. In most cases.
Seem to me like you feel like you're constrained in any way. You're standing up here today. I would offer to you that there's never been a more remarkable time to be a woman in this society. By every statistic, we are doing better than men. That's a fact, right? Men have we are graduating at a higher rate than men. Men have higher suicide rates. That's why I said to you, despite how you're feeling, what are the real world implications that suggest to you that you are somehow beneath men? You might have a personal experience where a man...
we can talk about sexual assault everywhere, in the military, in the home.
So are these the things that you're fighting to end sexual assault?
Of course, yeah.
Okay, great. You don't have to be a feminist to fight to end sexual assault.
You don't have to be,
men and women.
Yeah, I agree. I don't believe you have to be.
It's a great cause.
But it's, of course, a part of the ideology. Men and women go through that. I just said to him, one of the biggest things that
Men get sexually assaulted. And I'm not saying that to denounce what women go through at all. That's not what I'm saying at all. What I'm saying is, just because one thing happens doesn't mean it negates an entire category for other people. I don't know if that's what she's trying to say. I'm not going to put words into this young woman's mouth. But all I'm saying is, just because, I'm not going to say just because I don't like those phrasing. Women go through a lot in society. They definitely go through a lot in society. They have their own very specific set of challenges that even if I wanted to, I can't face them. Even though our challenges can intertwine. Of course they can intertwine, but women have a very specific set of challenges, and I'm not denouncing that. But the same way women have challenges, men also have challenges. So what am I trying to say? We all have challenges, like point blank period. That's just what it is. Like, that's how God made us on this earth. He gave men challenges that, of course, women can face them, but they're less inclined to face them. He gave women challenges that, of course, men can face them, but they're less inclined to face them. All in all, it doesn't mean that one gender is superior to the other. It just means that we face a different set of challenges naturally. So that doesn't mean that you can just forcefully allude to women just having it much worse in society. That's not true. Y'all just face a different set of challenges.
Now, you seem really committed to it. I've said to you since the very beginning, if you want to be a feminist girl, put it on a t-shirt, wear it, put a hashtag. I'm just telling you, don't unnecessarily put yourself into a corner, and to recognize that it has never been a greater time. I would offer it is a way better time in this society to be a woman than it is to be a man in the era of Me Too and false accusations. But thank you for your question. Thank you.
Candace, you speak about women returning to modesty.
To where?
Modesty.
Sure.
Practically, how
like
can
your-
we equip the next generations of women, both on the left and the right, to not base their human value in the sexual approval of men, but instead in their inherent value that God lovingly created them with?
I love that. I love your tone. think that you can only lead by example, you know, and so first and foremost, I criticize those things. I think we need to first fight culture by saying that this isn't cool, reminding people, and again, that goes back to what I said earlier about why I fight these cultural icons that are teaching women to degrade themselves and then turning around and saying, why do men degrade me? It's because you degrade yourself first, okay? And that, by the way, that would be a great feminist cause. Women actually talking about how we degrade ourselves every single day. When I look on Instagram and I see women half naked, it isn't men that are telling them to do that. I'll tell you that for free. I don't think there's any men left in the Kardashian household, if we're being honest.
Oh my gosh.
But I think that another reason that culture is swinging the other way and you're starting to see the spring of the trad whites and people that are valuing tradition is that women are starting to realize they're not happy, right? You can keep devaluing men and you can keep devaluing family, but as women age, you start to realize what happens is biology comes online and you start to realize that you actually aspire to those things that people have told you to hate. And that this is true. Your biological clock, this is not some patriarchal concept. It's a real thing that happens. For me, it was like 26 where suddenly I wanted to have a family. And then if we can have more people that are showing people and talking about the wonders of family, and we stop platforming the ignorance of people that say you can be bad all by yourself, you know what I mean? No, you can be really happy in a healthy relationship and with a family and with a man that leads your household and the man that you respect. And I hope that every day on my Instagram.
And I kind of love discussions like this, and not because I fully agree with what Candace Owens is saying. I love it because in the latter of what she was saying, she's not really putting the blame on women. And what I think is important in this discussion is that we can't really point the finger too much. Like, oh, you're wrong. You're morally incorrect. You can say you shouldn't be doing something, but you are just terrible. No, that's not true. Women, if you are going through some things or you live a certain type of life, that doesn't necessarily make you a bad person or a bad woman. But what I would say is try to at least learn about what she's talking about. And if you ever even slightly agree with wanting to start a family or being a wife or whatever, look into what she's saying. Because society will tell you one thing, and you can't fully base your livelihood on what society tells you. You have to eventually go out and look for the answers yourself. And that's something that she kind of is touching on in she's using different diction, of course. But go out and look for the answers yourself. See what you want out of life and see how you can get it and what's the best approach you can get it for. Because people don't want to admit it, but marriage rates are going down. Families are going down. Because people automatically believe that society is going to point them into that direction, but it's not the case. But if you want this life, go ahead and go try to get it yourself. Woman, man, point blank, period. And don't put the blame on yourself. You may have been lied to. But it's your responsibility to fix that.
Women to value that, to value what they can add to a household, and reminding men that the greatest thing you can ever be is a leader of your own household and faithful to your family. I really believe that. Best men, best women.
Thank you. My question is about the public school system. You mentioned that you went to the public school system.
I did.
And actually, my whole family, we have a connection to the system. My father is actually an assistant principal. I'm homeschooled. But,
you're homeschooled?
It's crazy how like his father is an assistant principal in public school, but he's homeschooled. That's a very interesting dynamic. That's insane.
I love that.
My question is, do you still think that there's hope for the public school system?
At the moment, no, because I think that the good guys are basically being threatened by the bad guys. I mean, I read a story the other day about, teachers getting fired. Now you've got like people that are like, oh, if you do this, you're racist, and then somebody will lose their entire career. And what's unfortunately happening, and I call this post-BLM America, where people are being hired not based on their actual qualifications, but based on how they look. So I'm going to be honest, I'm not hopeful right now, and I encourage people to homeschool their kids. And I think that you are a wonderful example of why that could be great. Now, that said, I do not want to diminish the public educators. I think that especially right now, it's one of the toughest jobs that you can have. And I'm grateful for the sacrifices that they make for trying to fix it from the inside. Whether I feel hopeful or not, I'm grateful that people are staying in there and actually trying to fix it from the inside. So a round of applause to any public educator.
And this kind of points to Candace Owens as a person. People try to demonize her in the public light, saying she's a terrible person, but all the clips I've watched, she's obviously extremely intelligent. She can be a little harsh sometimes, but I think she's coming from a good place. That's just one of my personal beliefs, and I feel like my moral compass is accurate. So I believe she's genuinely coming from a good place. So there's that. But if you have any more suggestions for me, comment down below. Without further ado, I'll see you in the next one.